All right, good afternoon from Tallahassee, Florida. Trust you're doing well. All right, I just want to quickly talk about F2 applicants, what they can tell the VO. You remember the last video I made about F2 applicants, where I was talking about the design for F2 visa is that the person, the holder, can come and stay with the main F1 holder for the duration of the studies, and that is the design of the F2 visa so that the family will not be apart. I also want to talk about situations where it is possible, in fact, it's even advisable for the F2 applicant to say that he or she want to stay for a certain period of time, maybe few months, few weeks, not necessarily for the extension of the whole during the whole period of the study of the main applicant, the F1 applicant. Okay, and of course, if you remember the last video, if you have watched it, I explained there that I've seen people say to the VO visa official that they are staying few months and they get granted, and I've seen people say to the visa official that they are staying for till the end of the duration of the main F1 holders program. Okay, and they were granted too because the when you look at the I-20, what is on the I-20 is still the duration of the F1 holder study. So it's very possible to say that. But there are some certain situations where even myself will advise the person who is going for F2 to say, oh, I'm just staying there for a certain period of time. For example, take someone who has a child who is in secondary school in Nigeria, for example, or who is about to write WAEC, so the terminal exam, or who is an undergraduate already. There are people like that in that situation where they have kids who are at least grown to that level around 18 or above 18. Okay. And then the person is going for an interview with the parent, unless the person is still less than 21, because if you have kids less than 21, they can still apply for F2 visa with you if you are the main holder. So in that situation where take an example of someone who has a kid in the university. I was speaking with someone recently. The person has a kid in the university, and my advice was, I mean, the person, in fact, even me, I want the kid to finish if the person is almost rounding up the studies. So the going with you should be for a few months and come back when the break is over to complete the studies. That will make sense to the VO listening to that. Now, if you tell the VO that, oh, my kid, or the kid is saying, oh, I'm going to stay with my dad or my mom for the duration of our program, even the viewer will want to question you in that regard and say, oh, you have a program running here, you want to abandon your program, what will you be doing here, there? You already have something you are doing here in Nigeria, and then you just want to abandon your program just like that and then leave. I mean, those kind of that might raise dust, that might bring some curiosity from the viewer, asking more questions, probing deeper. But in that sense, in that situation, to me, it's perfectly okay to say, oh, I'm just spending 1 month with my mom's the duration of the break, and I'm or with my dad during the break, and I'm coming back to Nigeria to continue my study. That's the child. Someone who is in secondary school too, probably preparing to write WAEC or something too, can say the same thing that, oh, this is what I'm doing. In fact, if you remember the last video I did, I was mentioning the fact that someone who has a really serious job doing in Nigeria, my advice will also be to say that you want to stay a few months, okay, um, and come back to your job because it's important. You can't resign because, let's say, for example, someone who is working in Shell, Chevron, all of these very big companies, earning a lot of money, and then you go to the embassy and the VO sees what you are earning, let's say 1.5 million per month. Okay, even the VO will want to question you that, and you want to stay with your spouse for the duration of the program. I mean, of course, one can still argue and say, yeah, for family values, you want your family to be together for this main time, for this period of time. But of course, it depends on different situations that will determine what you will say. Okay, the salary, what is, for example, if someone is not really doing anything in Nigeria, maybe a job that is paying just a few thousand, maybe 30,000, 50, 100,000, something like that. Of course, you may, it's easier to just say, I want to stay with my spouse to the end of the program. Okay, we want to stay together. And then you prove it. That money is not enough to tie you down. you want to stay with your family, you want the family to be one unit, you want it to be together. Of course, all those arguments which I've mentioned in the former videos, those are the things you want to talk about. I just want to quickly make this and say, yes, it is also possible in some situations where the F2 applicant can say, oh, it's just few months. That's what I want to spend with my spouse or with my parent. And of course, I've met people here in Tallahassee, Florida, for example, who came with a parent who were already probably in high school or probably in just finished high school. Uh, they were not, what do you call it now? Perhaps not in the university yet. I've seen people like that. Okay, even here in Thailand, Africans, I've seen people like that. So that's very possible. There are many people. There are a lot of people who fall into that category. Of course, high school people change school too. Okay, that's very possible. People change school, but university where it's difficult to do transfer of program or to do change of all these things. My advice will be to say few months. Of course, if someone want to say, "Oh, I'm going to stay with my parents to the duration of their study or wherever," you just have to prove what you are saying. That you want to, if you want to transfer, if the person want to go on F1, that person might have to go on F1 visa if it's a university transfer. That's a different video entirely, which I have to make on that concerning those who want to transfer to F1, either F2 to F1, or in that situation from Nigeria, the person might have to apply for F1 directly, even if you want to transfer from one school to another, which is even it takes a lot of time, and then it raises more questions with the VO and the likes. But it's just easy to say, oh, it's coming back to complete his studies, it's almost done, and then he or she will complete his studies. And let's say someone who is almost rounding up high school, it's coming back to round up the high school or whatever. High school is easy to do because you don't need F1 visa to study to do high school here in the US. Okay, so people with F2 can go to high school, but people with F2 visa cannot go to the university. I won't put an absolute on it because there are some situations where there can be some, what do you call it now? It's on a case by case basis. There are some exceptions to that, but generally, with your F2 visa, you cannot go to a university, you cannot go to a college. Generally, okay, though there are some exceptions. Okay, I may not touch on the exceptions here, but for high school, secondary schools with F2 visa, you can do that. So it's possible for someone in high school, secondary school to still say, I want to stay with my parents for the whole duration of their study, and it won't raise too much questions. Okay, but when it's somebody in the university, it's going to raise a lot of questions. So these are some of the instances that someone can say, oh, I want to stay with my parent for a few months. I want to stay with the F1 holder for a few months and come back to Nigeria, to Cameroon, to India, to wherever country you are watching from. Okay, now let me pick this question. Gift, you have a question. You said, can I apply together with my children for F1 and F2 visa, or should I apply? Yes, you can apply together. It's very possible. Okay, I've seen those who went together as a family and they got it. Okay, and they got it. That's very, very possible. Of course, one thing you want to make sure is you have on ground is that money is available, because that's one of from those stories I've had from people. I asked them how it went when they went together. Money is usually a factor. Okay, money to cater for their own need. Remember, you in their own I-20, you have to fill in that part where the school was asking where the money for their own will come from. Remember, each school have an amount they require an individual to have for dependents. Okay, some 10,000 for spouse, some 5,000 for children and the like. So you want to make sure that that is available, and it's not a question of uncle of brother of when it becomes too long, it raises question for the viewer, and the viewer just in many times just grants the main order and then deny the rest. But if you have that money settled on ground, everything settled, yes, you can apply together. Of course, we see people who've been denied, so it's not a foolproof thing, but it's still possible for you to go and give it a shot. Okay, so gift, it's possible you can do that, and if you feel more comfortable with you going first and then your children going later, that's fine too. But I think you can do it together so far the issue of money is settled and you know what to say depending on their situation, if they want to stay with you for the whole period of time of your study, or they will have to come back, depending if they have someone in Nigeria or where they can come back to. And then, so many things come into play, the dynamics. Because if you think as a VO, if the whole family is saying we are all going, let's say daddy says, or let's say mommy says, I'm staying with dad, with my husband. Let's say one kid says, I'm staying with daddy during his study, during duration of his studies, and one other kid now says, I'm coming back. And the kid is if a minor. The VO in his head is thinking, okay, who's going to take care of this kid? Blah blah blah. A lot of things come into play. Just make sure you have all those dynamics factored into your own situation. So yes, you can say that gift. All right, all right. Thank you for joining this video. I think I've made past the main point which I want to pass across. That's the major reason why I'm trying to do this video, to show you that there are situations, there are instances where an F2 applicant may say they want to stay with the main F1 holder for just few months, and they come back to their own country. You are saying, Mary, can the VO approve immediately if I have two children? When you mean immediately, I don't know what you mean immediately, but yes, VOs can approve visas for children. Yes, they can approve, and for spouse too. So far, all the conditions are right. Okay. So far, all the conditions are right. I've seen those who went together. I know someone who went with two kids, the wife, and then they all got it. I've seen different stories, different people, those who went together, those who went differently. I've seen someone, a man and his spouse went together, got it, the child got it later, the child joined them. I've seen different situations. I've seen a man went alone, got it, children, child, wife and child got it later. I've seen different situations. In fact, I've seen a family of four, wife and son, wife and daughter got it, husband and son got rejected. That's a very funny case. Husband and son got rejected, wife and daughter got accepted, and the wife and daughter left. And then subsequent times, the husband and son got rejected a couple of times, and then eventually they were accepted. Okay, and they both all left. So now it's a story. It's all stories for them too. And so different situations. I've seen different situations. So it's very, very possible. And I've seen situations where the spouse, wife, and child got rejected, and then over and over, and after a while wife and child got it eventually, and they were able to join the husband. Okay, I've seen situation where husband got rejected over and over, and then eventually was able to join the wife after getting it. So all those different dynamics, different things factor into the VO's decision. We don't really know. But personally, I wish the VOs can write the exact reason why they deny people, and not just give a general what do you call it, general message, general statement, and say based on blah blah blah. Let them give the exact reason. How I wish that is what happens, but since we don't know, we can only speculate and deduce from the situation on ground, from whatever the person who has attended the interview has made known to us, or whatever has been filled in DS-160 form. So yes, give it a try, Mary. It's very, very possible with your two children and spouse. It's possible you can get it. All right, let me just wait a few more seconds to take any other question. If anyone has any question, a few more seconds, let's say 10 seconds, I'll just wait 10 more seconds. Okay. Okay, while waiting, let me just recap the whole thing I've mentioned for those who are just joining in. So all I've said in this video is that it's very possible for F2 applicants to say to the viewer that they want to stay for a few months in very valid cases. And I mentioned it that although the real intent of the F2 visa is for the spouse to be able to stay with the F1 holder, main holder, for the duration of the studies, which is what you see in your I-20. It says till the duration of the studies of the F1 holder, the same end date. That is what you have there. But in some situations, different peculiar situations, it makes more sense for the F2 applicant to say, oh, I'm staying for a few months, let's say 2 months, 3 months. And I gave an example of someone in the university, a child who is in the university already less than 21. So less than 21 means he can apply for F2 visa with the parent, okay, but he's already in the university, and the VO might start asking questions about, okay, what do you want to do with your studies? You want to stop university? If the guy says, yes, I want to stop university, that raises a question, another question. Why would you want to give up your study in the university just because you want to be able to follow your parents? Okay, that raises a question to the VO. And if the person says, oh, I will transfer to another university in the United States, that raises another question because you cannot study in the university in the United States with an F2 visa. Okay, there are exceptions, few exceptions, but I don't want to go into that. But that raises that question that you can't do that. And the viewer is thinking again, okay, this is not the category of visa you need. You need F1 visa to be able to do that. So that means your parent would need F1, you need F1 for your own too. Okay, so it makes sense in that situation to say, oh, I'll be coming back to complete my studies here. I just want to follow my parent just to say LOI, just to say United States and come back to Nigeria. Now, the situation might be different for someone in secondary school. Okay, for someone in secondary school, with F2, you can do secondary school, high school, you can do that here in the United States. Okay. So that may not raise too much question because it's easy to just transfer, to just change, for secondary school, high school student. That is very, very possible. Elementary school, name it, middle school, whatever. That's very, very doable. But the dynamics changes when it becomes a university thing. It changes at that level. And for someone who is also earning a lot, let's say the spouse that is earning like 1.5 million, 2 million naira. I mean, with respect to the Nigerian situation, the VO, if you say you want to leave totally, the VO is thinking like you must really give the VO a very solid reason to resign this good paying job to stay with your wife or your husband for few years, for 2 years or 5 years, as the case may be, and then come back to Nigeria because the VO is expecting you to come back. You will say it in the interview that you are coming back to Nigeria. So the VO is thinking, so do you mean you will come back to square one? So except you can prove, okay, beyond reasonable doubt that you have all reasons to leave, or you have a study leave, or you have one thing, you have that. Remember, you can't even get study leave if you are not the one going on study. Okay, so all those dynamics come into play. But for someone who is not earning that much, it's easier to just say, yeah, I want to leave. Okay, I want to leave. When I come back, I'll find another job and the likes. Okay, that's easier to say for someone who is not earning that much. For someone who is earning a lot, you have to be able to construct your answer well to show why it is more important to stay with your family than staying in Nigeria to earn that money. So all this will come down to the prerogative of the VO, what the VO decides, what the VO thinks eventually. Those are some of the factors that come into play for them to either grant or not grant the visa. No, they just want to think how logical is this too. And for F2, you are not expected to work in the United States. So they factor all this into um all their, what do you call it now, all their response, what the response will be. They factor all these things together. All right. It seems there is no question. I think I can end this live video here now. I know people who will still get through this and see this later on will ask questions. You can always drop your question in the chat box. As soon as I see it, I promise I'll always respond to your question. I might not always see it immediately, but whenever I see your questions, I will respond to it. All right. Thank you so much for joining in. If you have not subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe, share it with people, blah, blah, blah. See other videos I've made on F2 and F1, just share with people who you think needs it. Gabriel, you are saying you're currently in Russia for masters, but you're considering US for PhD. Okay. Um, have you started applying? Let me just drop my email and for you here. Let me drop one email. You can reach me. Yeah, for this. Okay. Okay, good. Russia. I have folks in Russia too who are studying in Russia. All right. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice night rest if you're in Nigeria. For those who are still in the day in different places, God bless you. Really good. Have a nice time. Yeah.